Okay, so today we're gonna dive into how doctors think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a big one.
It is a big one. And I think a lot of our listeners have probably thought about this, when they've been to the doctor and, you're sitting there and they're asking you all these questions. And you're kind of like, how are they putting this together?
Yeah.
And so we have this excerpt from Medical Cognition,
Mm-hmm.
Research and Evaluation. And it really tries to give us a glimpse into that process of, you know, medical problem solving and decision making.
Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just like they magically know the answer.
Right.
There are actual like frameworks and approaches that people study in this field. One of the big ones is this idea of information processing.
Okay, information processing. So is that like, I'm thinking like a computer almost.
Yeah, exactly. Like the book talks about this analogy of the mind as a computer
Hmm.
and how you can think of doctors, taking all this information they're getting from you,
Right.
your symptoms, your medical history, all that.
Yeah, the exam, all that stuff, and then processing it through these steps
Right.
to arrive at a conclusion. So it's like
Yeah.
they're running these mental algorithms trying to identify patterns.
Okay, so this is really about the problem-solving aspect of it. Like, how do they figure out
Exactly.
what's wrong with me?
Exactly. Like, what's the diagnosis?
Right.
And it draws a lot from how cognitive psychologists think about thinking, and even some ideas from computer science.
Wow. So it's a very like kind of structured approach almost.
Yeah, in a way, like trying to break down those thought processes.
That's super interesting. Okay, so we've got the information processing side of it. Now, the book also mentions these normative models. So what are those all about?
Yeah, so normative models are less about the step-by-step processing and more about the decisions that doctors make.
Okay.
So like once they've figured out what's going on with you, what do they choose to do about it?
Gotcha.
And one of the things they look at is, do doctors' decisions match up with what would be like the perfectly logical choice
Right.
like, from an economic standpoint?
Interesting.
And that's where this thing called expected utility theory comes in.
Oh, expected utility theory. So is that like where they're trying to calculate the best outcome?
Yeah, kind of like imagine you've got different options, each with different possible outcomes and probabilities.
Yeah.
Expected utility theory says you'd pick the option with the highest overall value, based on those probabilities and outcomes.
Okay. So it's all about weighing the odds and the potential benefits and risks.
Exactly. And in medicine, that might be like weighing different treatment options with different success rates and potential side effects.
Right. Right. So like, surgery might have a high success rate, but also higher risks.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that doctors don't always make decisions that perfectly align with this theory.
Well, yeah, because I mean, there are other factors involved.
Oh, totally. Like, patient preferences, the specific circumstances.
Right.
It's not just a pure calculation.
And the doctor's own experience, like maybe they've seen something work in the past that doesn't necessarily line up with the
Well,
like the pure statistics.
exactly. Experience plays a huge role.
So it seems like this field really tries to understand, these different ways that doctors think and make decisions. And it's not just one thing. It's not just information processing. It's not just normative models.
Yeah, it's like a whole toolbox of different approaches.
Right.
And it's really cool because it brings in all these different disciplines. Like we've got cognitive psychology, computer science, looking at how to model these processes,
Right.
and even economics.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And it makes you realize, when we talk about, years of medical training,
Yeah.
it's not just about memorizing facts.
No,
It's about developing this whole way of thinking.
Yeah, like these sophisticated ways of analyzing information and making decisions under pressure.
Yeah, because the stakes are high, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so this medical cognition field is really trying to get at the science behind all of that.
Yeah, like what makes an expert medical mind tick?
Right. So it's not just intuition, it's not just, gut feeling. There's actual science to it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is really cool. So what I'm taking away from this is that, medical cognition is all about understanding the mental processes behind medical expertise, looking at both how doctors solve problems and how they make decisions, and that it draws on all these different fields.
Exactly. It's like this interdisciplinary effort to understand the cognitive toolkit that allows them to do what they do.
That's really cool. And, thinking about this, it makes me wonder, we all make complex decisions in our lives, right? Not just medical ones.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Do you ever think about, like, do I tend to approach these decisions more like that information processing model where I try to break everything down systematically?
Yeah.
Or am I more drawn to weighing the potential outcomes and risks like that normative model suggests?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Like, do we use similar processes even outside of medicine?
Yeah, and maybe being aware of those different approaches can help us make better decisions in our own lives, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point. Something to think about.
Some food for thought until next time.
Definitely.
All right, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.